When I walked into her living room, there were 3 lawyers waiting, and a stack of papers waiting for my signature, papers that would have taken everything my father left me. She smiled, like this was normal, like this was fair. My name is Ariana Caldwell. I'm 32 years old, and in that moment, I realized something I should have understood years ago. This wasn't a family meeting. It was an ambush. They expected me to come alone, to get lost in legal jargon, to feel small, to nod, to sign, and walk away with nothing. They thought the daughter they had overlooked for 20 years would finally do what she had always done: stay quiet. They were wrong, because what happened next ended with police at their door. Before we begin, feel free to like the video. I'm always curious how far these stories travel. This story didn't start 3 weeks ago. It started 25 years ago, the day my parents divorced. I was 7 years old when my world split in half. My father, James Caldwell, was a carpenter. He built things with his hands: furniture, cabinets, entire rooms shaped out of raw wood and patience. He could build almost anything, except a defense against my mother's lawyers. He didn't have the money for the best ones. And when the divorce was finalized, he lost nearly everything. My mother got the house. She got custody. My father got 2 weekends a month, and a quiet kind of heartbreak he never really showed. I still remember the last time he dropped me off after one of those weekends. He knelt down on the porch, his rough hands resting gently on my shoulders. "Remember this, sweetheart," he said softly. "No matter what anyone tells you, I'm always here. I'll always love you." I didn't understand why his eyes were wet. I was 7. I thought maybe fathers just cried sometimes. A year later, my mother remarried. Victor Hayes stepped into our lives in tailored suits and polished shoes, bringing with him his daughter Vanessa from his first marriage. Just like that, our family changed shape. And somehow, I didn't quite fit into it anymore. Victor never raised a hand to me. He never yelled. What he did was quieter than that. Colder. He treated me like I wasn't there at all. At dinner parties, my mother would introduce everyone with a smile. "This is my husband, Victor, and this is Vanessa, our daughter." Then, almost as an afterthought, she'd gesture vaguely in my direction. "Oh, and this is Ariana. She's from my previous marriage." Every time she said it, I felt myself shrink just a little more. So I learned how to disappear. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant fewer questions, fewer comparisons, fewer moments where I came up short next to Vanessa's piano recitals and honor roll certificates. But invisible also meant being forgotten. The favoritism wasn't hidden, it was structured, consistent, almost deliberate. When I was 16, I asked my mother for money to buy textbooks for the new semester. She looked at me like I'd just asked for something absurd. "Ask your father," she said flatly. "He's the one who's supposed to provide for you." That same week, Vanessa got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. A silver Toyota Camry with a ribbon stretched across the hood. The whole family gathered outside to watch her laugh and hug everyone, like she had just won something. I started working after school not long after that. Washing dishes at a small diner, mowing lawns for neighbors, taking whatever I could get. Every dollar I earned felt like a quiet act of resistance. Victor noticed. Of course he did. "She's just like her father," he said one night, not even trying to lower his voice. "Going to spend her whole life doing other people's dirty work." I acted like I didn't hear him. But I did. I always did. The worst moment came at my high school graduation. I had ranked at the top of my class in mathematics. It wasn't a huge thing to anyone else, but it mattered to me. It was something I had earned on my own. I expected nothing from my family, and they delivered exactly that. My mother didn't invite anyone. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins filling the seats. But someone showed up. In the back row, wearing that same worn brown jacket that never quite fit him anymore, sat my father, James Caldwell. He clapped louder than anyone when they called my name. I could hear him over the entire room. After the ceremony, he found me outside. His eyes were shining again, just like they had been all those years ago on that porch. He pressed a small envelope into my hand. "I've been saving," he whispered. "For your college. Don't tell your mother." I kept that secret for 14 years, until the day he died. And that secret turned into something much bigger. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 7:04 a.m. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when my phone lit up with an unknown number. I almost let it ring out. Sometimes I wish I had. But the truth is, it wouldn't have changed anything. "Ms. Ariana Caldwell?" The voice was older, calm, professional. "Yes," I said. "My name is Gregory Sutton. I'm an estate attorney. I was your father's lawyer, and his friend." There was a brief pause, just long enough for something inside me to tighten. "I'm very sorry to inform you that James Caldwell passed away 3 days ago. It was his heart. He passed peacefully in his sleep." The coffee cup slipped from my fingers. I watched it drop in slow motion, dark liquid splashing across the white tiles of my kitchen floor. I didn't even try to catch it. My body just froze. 3 days. My father had been gone for 3 days. "Ms. Caldwell, are you still there?" "Who else knows?" My voice didn't sound like mine. "Your mother was notified along with her husband." Of course she was, and not one of them had told me. Not a call, not a message, nothing. My father died, and I found out from a stranger on the phone. "Mr. Sutton." I pressed my hand against the counter to steady myself. "Why are you calling me?" "Your father left a will, Ms. Caldwell, a very specific one. He named you as the sole beneficiary. I'd like to meet with you to go over the details." Sole beneficiary. The words didn't land. They just floated somewhere above reality. My dad was a carpenter. He lived in a small house, drove a truck older than some of my coworkers. "There has to be a mistake." "There isn't." Gregory's voice softened, just slightly. "James was very intentional about this. He made me promise I would contact you first before anyone else, and he asked me to tell you something very clearly. Do not inform your family about our meeting." My heart started racing. Why? Because he knew they would try to take it from you. Gregory Sutton's office smelled like old paper and polished wood. The kind of place where everything felt deliberate, solid, trustworthy. He looked older than I expected. Silver hair, thin wire-rimmed glasses. The face of a man who had watched too many families fall apart the moment money entered the room. He motioned for me to sit. A thick folder rested on the desk between us. "Your father came to me 23 years ago," he said, "right after the divorce. His only concern was making sure that if anything ever happened to him, you would be protected." He opened the folder. Inside were documents, official ones. Alongside them, photographs, bank statements, property records. "The house in Queen Anne," he continued, "market value approximately $850,000, a savings account totaling $300,000, and several smaller assets." He looked up. "Total estimated estate value is approximately $1.2 million. I couldn't breathe. "That's not possible. My dad was a carpenter." "He was," Gregory said calmly. "And about 15 years ago, he sold his workshop and began investing. Mostly small rental properties. Nothing flashy. He lived modestly, because he wanted to leave all of this to you." His voice lowered slightly. "He never spent the principal, not once." My father wasn't paranoid, just careful. The kind of careful you become after losing everything once. My vision blurred. All those years, the small house, the old truck, the same worn jacket at my graduation. He could have lived better. He chose not to. Gregory reached into the folder again and slid something toward me. A sealed envelope. My name was written across the front in my father's handwriting. "He asked me to give you this when the time came," Gregory said. Then he hesitated. But he also gave very specific instructions. "Don't open it until you truly need it." He said, "You would know when that moment comes." I picked it up. It felt light, almost nothing in my hands, and yet somehow, it felt heavier than everything else in that room. "There's one more thing," Gregory added. "Your mother. She's already started asking questions." For about a week, everything went quiet. Then the calls began. Susan Keller was the first, my mother's younger sister. Always too much perfume. Always speaking like everything was a secret. "Ariana, sweetheart," her voice was soaked in practiced sympathy. "I heard about your father, such a tragedy. And I also heard, well, there might be some money involved?" I didn't answer. "Your mother is very upset," she continued softly. "She feels like you're shutting the family out. Don't you think it would be fair to share what James left behind? After all, she was married to him too." I ended the call. Michael Grant called next, then Lauren Pierce, then people I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them suddenly remembered I existed, all of them repeating the same lines. "Your mother is heartbroken. Family should stick together. James would have wanted you to share. Would he?" I glanced at the envelope sitting untouched in my drawer. I remembered Gregory's warning. He knew they would try to take it from you. Finally, my mother called. It was Thursday evening. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. The kind of sweetness that used to come right before something bad happened when I was a child. "Ariana, darling, I've been trying to reach you. I heard about the will." "Who told you?" She ignored the question completely. "We need to talk about this. As a family. Your father and I were married for 9 years. Everything he had. I helped build that life. Surely you understand that. The will says something different." There was a pause, then her tone shifted, cooler. "We should meet, discuss this properly. I'll arrange a family meeting this weekend. My house, Saturday at 2. "Fine." "And Ariana," her voice tightened just slightly, "don't be difficult about this. We're your family. Everything can be resolved if you just cooperate." I didn't sleep that night. There was a weight in the air, something building just out of sight. I couldn't explain it, but I could feel it. Something was coming. Before the so-called family meeting, I agreed to meet my mother for coffee. "Just the two of us," she had said. "We should talk things through." She didn't come alone. Victor Hayes was already there when I arrived at the Starbucks Reserve in Seattle, sitting with his arms folded across his chest like he owned the place. My mother sat beside him, her expression carefully arranged into something soft, something wounded. "Ariana, sweetheart," she said, gesturing toward the empty chair. "Sit down. Victor wanted to join us. You don't mind, do you?" I did mind, but I sat anyway. Victor didn't waste a second. He leaned forward, his voice low, his cologne sharp enough to sting. "Let's not pretend this is complicated," he said. "Your father's gone. He left you some money. Fine. But your mother spent years raising you. She deserves her share." "Her share of what?" I asked. "The estate." He shrugged. "We're thinking 70-30. You keep 30. Sign the papers. Everyone walks away happy." I turned to my mother. She wouldn't even look at me. "Dad left everything to me," I said quietly. "That was his decision." "His decision?" Victor let out a short, dismissive laugh. "He's dead. His decisions don't matter anymore." Something inside me went cold. They matter to me. 70-30, Ariana. His voice dropped harder now. "That's the deal." "No!" The word landed heavier than I expected. He blinked, like the idea had never even occurred to him. "No?" I stood up. "The will is legal, it's final, and this conversation is over." I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard his chair scrape sharply against the floor. "You're going to regret this." His voice carried across the cafe, loud enough that people started to turn. "Trust me, you have no idea what you're dealing with." I didn't look back, but I remembered every word. Later, I would understand just how much those words mattered. After that meeting, everything escalated. They didn't come at me directly, not at first. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they used the family. They turned people into messengers, into pressure points. My phone became something I dreaded looking at. Messages stacked up like accusations. From Susan Keller, "Your mother cried all night. Is this really who you've become?" From Michael Grant, "James would be ashamed of you. You know that, right?" From cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Selfish, ungrateful, cold. Then came the post. Someone, no name attached, but I could guess, wrote a long, emotional message in the family group. It painted me as greedy, as manipulative, as the daughter who had taken advantage of her father and turned her back on the very people who raised her. Relatives I barely recognized calling me things I won't repeat, old family friends reacting with anger, disappointment. Someone even shared an old photo of me with a caption that read, "This is what betrayal looks like." I took screenshots of everything, every message, every post, every insult. At the time, I wasn't even sure why. It was instinct more than anything. A quiet voice in the back of my mind, Gregory's voice. He knew they would try to take it from you. Vanessa texted me for the first time in months. "You're tearing this family apart, Ariana. Mom won't stop crying. Why are you doing this to us?" I started typing a reply. Deleted it, typed again. Deleted that too. Finally, I sent one line. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just refusing to give away what Dad chose to leave me." She didn't answer. Then, nothing. 2 full weeks of silence. No calls, no messages, no posts. And somehow, that silence felt worse than everything that came before it. Because silence meant they were thinking, planning. The next call came on a Wednesday. My mother's voice had changed. No sweetness this time, no softness, just flat, controlled, almost rehearsed. "Ariana, we need to meet. A family meeting, this Saturday, 2 o'clock, my house." What's there left to talk about? The future. A pause. How we move forward. Victor thinks, we all think. There's a way to resolve this without involving lawyers, without courts, like a family should. The way she said lawyers made something in my stomach tighten. Too casual, too careful. "Fine," I said. "I'll be there." Good. There it was again. That faint trace of satisfaction. "And Ariana," her voice sharpened just slightly. "Come with an open mind. We all want what's best for everyone." I hung up and immediately called Gregory. "A family meeting," I told him. "Saturday. She mentioned lawyers but said we could resolve it without them." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "If she mentioned lawyers at all, she already has them. You can assume that." "What do I do?" "You go," he said. "But you don't go unprepared. I'll be nearby. If anything feels off, you text me. I'll come in." I hesitated. "What exactly do you think they're going to do?" "I think they'll try to pressure you," Gregory replied. "Intimidation, emotional manipulation, maybe even threats disguised as concern. They'll likely have documents ready for you to sign, things that sound reasonable, but aren't." His voice stayed calm, steady. "Do not sign anything, Ariana. Don't agree to anything, and no matter what they say, don't lose control. That's what they're counting on." I thought about Victor's voice in the cafe. "You're going to regret this." "Gregory, do you think my dad saw all of this coming?" "He spent 20 years preparing for it." A pause. "He loved you very much, Ariana, and he understood your mother better than anyone." That night, I opened my drawer and looked at the envelope again. Still sealed. Still waiting. Not yet. But soon. The night before the meeting. I opened it. My father's handwriting filled the page. Slightly unsteady, like it had been written later in his life, but unmistakably his. The same handwriting from birthday cards, small notes, every quiet reminder that he was there. "My dearest Ariana, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And if Gregory gave this to you now, it means your mother has already begun. I always knew she would. Some things never change. There's something I never told you. During the divorce, your mother threatened to take you away from me completely. No visits. No contact. She had a lawyer who said he could make it happen. I was terrified. You were only 7, so I gave up everything. The house, the savings, every asset I had. I signed it all away, just so I wouldn't lose my weekends with you. Just so I could hold on to even the smallest part of being your father. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I should have fought harder. That regret has stayed with me every single day since. But I won't let you make the same mistake. I won't let you bow your head to people who don't deserve your respect. Everything is ready. Gregory has all the documentation, the will, the medical evaluations, every legal safeguard I could think of. He also has recordings, things your mother said, things she believed would never come back to her. Trust Gregory. Trust yourself. And remember what I told you on that porch when you were 7. I'm always here. I'll always love you. Don't let them take what's yours, sweetheart. Not the money. That's just paper. Don't let them take your dignity, your right to stand tall. That's the real inheritance I'm leaving you. Love always, Dad. I sat there in the dark for a long time after finishing the letter. It was pressed tightly against my chest, my hands trembling, tears slipping down without any effort to stop them. He knew. He had known all along. Friday morning, I sat across from Gregory in his office. This wasn't just a meeting anymore, it was preparation. The final briefing before a fight neither of us had chosen, but one we were ready for. He laid everything out across the conference table with careful precision. The will, notarized and witnessed. Medical reports confirming my father's full mental clarity. Property records, bank statements, everything organized, everything airtight. They're going to claim James wasn't of sound mind, Gregory said. That's their only real angle. They may even have someone in the family willing to testify that he was confused, forgetful, easy to influence. Susan Keller, I said immediately. She'd do it. She'd lie for my mother. Then we counter with this. He lifted a folder and slid it toward me. Psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Emily Carter. 8 weeks before your father's death. Full cognitive assessment. Memory, reasoning, decision-making capacity. He tapped the page lightly. He passed every category without issue. Any judge in Washington will accept this without hesitation. Then he placed something else on the table, a small drive. 47 text messages, 23 recorded phone calls, 15 social media posts, Gregory said, all documenting a coordinated pattern of harassment against you. His eyes met mine. If they try to position themselves as victims, we'll show exactly who's been doing the attacking. I stared at the device for a moment. You told him to collect all this? Gregory shook his head slowly. Your father told me to prepare for a war. His voice softened just slightly. He hoped it wouldn't come to this. But he knew your mother. He knew her husband. He wanted to make sure you weren't walking in unprotected. What if they bring lawyers tomorrow? I asked. Then I walk in. He handed me his card. Keep your phone close. If you see legal representation, text me one word, now. I'll be waiting 2 blocks away. I nodded, taking a slow breath. Anything else? Yes. Gregory leaned forward slightly, his tone steady. No matter what they say, don't react, don't raise your voice, don't cry, don't give them anything they can use against you. He paused. Your father always believed you were stronger than you realized. Tomorrow, you prove him right. I held his gaze. Ready or not, this was happening. Saturday, 1:55 p.m. I pulled up outside my mother's house, my heart beat loud enough that I could feel it in my throat. Gregory's car was parked exactly where he said it would be, 2 blocks away. A quiet reassurance, a lifeline. The house looked exactly the same as it always had. White siding, perfect lawn. That picture-perfect version of stability I had spent years trying to belong to. Now, it felt different, like stepping into hostile territory. I walked up the front steps. Before I could knock, the door opened. My mother stood there, smiling too brightly, too quickly. Ariana, you came. She leaned in like she was about to hug me. I didn't move. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Everyone's waiting. Everyone. The words settled heavy in my chest as I stepped inside. The living room was more crowded than I expected. My mother and Victor sat on the main couch. Susan Keller perched stiffly in an armchair, her eyes fixed somewhere else. Michael Grant stood near the window, arms crossed. Vanessa sat off to the side, scrolling through her phone like none of this concerned her. And then there were 3 people I didn't recognize. 2 men in tailored suits. one woman with a leather briefcase. They were seated at the dining table, which had been cleared except for stacks of documents, and a digital recorder placed neatly at the center. My mother followed my gaze, her smile never slipping. "Ariana, these are Mr. Stevens and Mr. Martinez," she said smoothly. "They're attorneys, and this is their assistant." She gestured toward an empty chair. "Go ahead, sweetheart, sit down. We have a lot to go through." I didn't move. "You said this was a family meeting." "It is," Victor cut in, his tone calm but edged with something sharper. "We're just making sure everything is handled properly." I looked at the papers, the recorder, the lawyers who suddenly found the table very interesting instead of meeting my eyes. This wasn't a discussion. It was a setup, an ambush. And they were absolutely certain. I had walked into it alone. Mr. Stevens spoke first, silver hair, controlled voice. The kind of man who looked like he charged hundreds an hour and never wasted a word. "Ms. Caldwell," he began, opening a folder with slow precision. "Thank you for coming. We represent your mother, Mrs. Olivia Caldwell, in matters concerning the estate of James Caldwell." I didn't say a word. I just stood there and waited. "It has come to our attention," Mr. Stevens continued, glancing briefly at his notes, "that the will naming you as sole beneficiary may be subject to contest. We have reason to believe James Caldwell was not of sound mind when he executed the document. We also have witnesses prepared to testify to a decline in his mental condition during his final years." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Susan Keller shift in her seat. She still wouldn't look at me. Mr. Martinez leaned forward, folding his hands calmly. "Of course, we could take this to probate court," he said. "But these cases can drag on for years, Ms. Caldwell. Legal fees alone could eat through a substantial portion of the estate. In the end, no one really wins." A pause. Then Stevens stepped back in, smooth as ever. "But there is a simpler solution. A family settlement. You voluntarily relinquish 80% of the estate to your mother. You retain 20%. Clean, efficient. Everyone moves forward." 80%. Not 70 like Victor had demanded at the cafe. They had adjusted their expectations, upward. "You're asking me to give up nearly $1 million, I said. "We're asking you to be reasonable," Stevens replied evenly, sliding a thick stack of documents toward me. "Everything is outlined here. You're welcome to review them, but I believe you'll find the terms quite fair." I lowered my gaze to the top page. Bold text stared back at me. "Voluntary relinquishment of inheritance rights." I could feel my mother watching me, hopeful, hungry. Victor's smile sat sharp on his face, like he had already decided how this would end. Stevens clicked his pen. "Shall we proceed?" I picked up the papers and flipped through them slowly. Page after page, legal language, final terms, surrender. And then I smiled. "You know what's funny?" That seemed to throw them. Victor was the first to recover. "What's funny," he said, pushing himself to his feet, "is that you think you actually have a choice." His face flushed, irritation rising fast now. "You're nobody, Ariana, a nobody with a useless degree and a dead-end job. And now you've got a little money and suddenly you think you're above us?" "Victor," my mother started. "No, she needs to hear this." He pointed directly at me. "You're exactly like your father, stubborn, short-sighted. He spent his entire life doing other people's dirty work, and he died alone in that sad little house. That's your future. That's what you're clinging to." Susan nodded quickly. "He's right," she added. "You've always been difficult, even as a child, selfish." From the window, Michael spoke without turning. "Always taking, never giving." My mother pressed a tissue to her eyes, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. "I raised you," she said. "I gave up everything for you. I gave you a home when your father walked away. He didn't walk away. And this is how you repay me?" she shot back. "By hoarding money that belongs to this family?" Stevens cleared his throat lightly. "Miss Caldwell, I strongly advise you to consider your position carefully. Contesting this matter in court would be costly, drawn out, and ultimately unsuccessful, especially given the testimony we are prepared to present regarding your father's mental condition. He slid the pen toward me. Sign the documents. End this. Gracefully. I looked around the room, at my mother's carefully practiced tears, at Victor's barely contained anger, at the relatives who had spent years teaching me how to disappear. They had everything prepared. Lawyers, witnesses, pressure, everything. Except one thing. I reached for my phone. Actually, I said calmly, I think I'd like a second opinion. I typed one word and hit send. Now. Victor let out a sharp laugh. What are you doing? He said. Texting your friends? No one's coming to save you, Ariana. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. 2 minutes passed. Slow, heavy, quiet. Stevens and Martinez exchanged a brief look. My mother's smile began to slip. And then, the doorbell rang. And for the first time, my mother looked unsure. Everything stopped. My mother turned toward Victor. Victor glanced at the lawyers. The lawyers looked at each other. I'll get it, I said. Sit down, Victor started, but I was already walking. I opened the door. Gregory Sutton stood on the porch, charcoal suit, leather briefcase, calm, steady eyes behind thin-framed glasses. Good afternoon, he said, loud enough for everyone inside to hear. I hope I'm not interrupting. Then he stepped past me, straight into the room. The shift was immediate. Stevens straightened. Martinez's confidence cracked. My mother's face lost all color. Ladies and gentlemen, Gregory said, setting his briefcase down on the coffee table. My name is Gregory Sutton. I am a licensed estate attorney in the state of Washington, and I have represented the interests of James Caldwell for the past 25 years. A brief pause. I now represent his daughter, Ariana Caldwell. Victor spoke first, his voice tight. This is a private family matter, which now involves legal representation on both sides. Gregory replied calmly as he opened his briefcase. I understand there are questions regarding the validity of Mr. Caldwell's will. I'd be more than happy to address them. He began placing items on the table, a thick folder, a digital drive, and a sealed envelope. My mother stared at them like they were something alive. Dangerous. Gregory took a seat, completely at ease. Now then, he said lightly, folding his hands, where would you like to begin? The ambush had just been ambushed. Let me pause here for a second because I want to ask you something. If you were in my place, sitting in that room, surrounded by people who saw you as nothing more than an obstacle between them and money, what would you have done? Would you have signed just to keep the peace, or would you have held your ground? Gregory opened the folder with calm, surgical precision. Let's begin with your claim, he said evenly, that James Caldwell was not of sound mind when he executed his will. He slid a document across the table toward Stevens. This is a psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Emily Carter, a board-certified specialist, 8 weeks prior to Mr. Caldwell's passing. It includes a full cognitive assessment, memory, reasoning, decision-making capacity. Stevens glanced down, just for a second, but it was enough. The conclusion, Gregory continued, is clear. James Caldwell was fully competent. Any court in Washington will accept this without hesitation. Your witnesses won't hold up under cross-examination. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Susan shrink back into her chair. She suddenly found her shoes very interesting. Furthermore, Gregory went on, placing additional documents on the table, the will was executed in full compliance with Washington probate law. 2 independent witnesses. Proper notarization. Legally airtight. He turned slightly toward Martinez. You mentioned probate court. I welcome it. We will prevail, and we will pursue damages for frivolous litigation. My mother's voice broke through, tight and strained. Gregory, surely we can talk about this reasonably. We are being reasonable, Mrs. Caldwell, he replied calmly. Reason tells us you have no legal standing. Reason tells us this will is valid. Reason tells us your daughter inherits exactly what her father intended her to have. Stevens lifted a hand slightly. Mr. Sutton, perhaps we shouldn't rush. There may be room for compromise. There isn't. Gregory's gaze moved slowly across the room. James Caldwell spent 20 years preparing for this exact moment. He knew precisely who would attempt to challenge his daughter's inheritance, and he made sure they would not succeed. Silence fell. Heavy, unavoidable. The lawyers exchanged a look. My mother clutched her tissue like it was the only thing holding her together. Gregory leaned back slightly. Shall I continue? Or would you prefer a moment? No one spoke, so he continued. He lifted the USB drive and held it up briefly before setting it down with a soft, deliberate click. This contains 47 text messages, 23 recorded phone calls, and 15 social media posts, all documenting a coordinated pattern of harassment against my client. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Threats, defamation, emotional abuse, all originating from individuals present in this room. Susan's face drained of color. Michael shifted his weight, arms slowly uncrossing. Washington law is very clear on these matters, Gregory continued. Harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Then he looked directly at my mother. If this proceeds to court, Mrs. Caldwell, I will not only defend the will, I will file counterclaims. We will subpoena your phone records, your social media accounts, every message sent over the past 3 months. Victor slammed his hand against the table. This is insane. We're family. You can't just— I can, Gregory said, perfectly calm. And I will. He didn't look at Victor. He didn't need to. The evidence is extensive. Would you like me to read aloud the messages where my client was called selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace? I have them printed, organized, chronologically. My mother turned sharply to Stevens. Do something! Stevens didn't respond right away. He began gathering his papers slowly, his expression tightening, like a man who had just realized the ground beneath him wasn't solid after all. Mrs. Caldwell, he said carefully, I believe we need to reassess our position. He glanced at Martinez. Perhaps we should continue this discussion privately. I think that would be wise, Gregory said. Then, almost as an afterthought, and while you're reassessing, you may want to consider this. He reached into his briefcase again. James Caldwell recorded several conversations, including one from 2001, in which Mrs. Caldwell threatened to remove him entirely from his daughter's life unless he surrendered all marital assets. The sound my mother made wasn't controlled. It was raw. Any questions? Gregory asked quietly. No one answered. The room started to come apart. Stevens and Martinez stood quickly, gathering their things with the kind of urgency that comes from wanting distance. Fast, immediate. The assistant was already halfway to the door. Mrs. Caldwell will be in contact, Stevens said, not meeting anyone's eyes. We strongly advise seeking alternative counsel. And then they were gone. The door shut behind them with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than anything else that had happened. Susan started crying. Not the careful kind. Real tears. Olivia, you told us James was confused. You said he didn't understand what he was signing. You said— Enough, Susan. My mother's voice snapped. The mask was gone. Completely gone. Her face twisted, anger spilling out where control used to be. You think this is over? She spat, turning toward Gregory, then toward me. You think you've won something? She's my daughter. That money belongs to me. I was married to James for 9 years. I endured those years. You threatened to take his child away unless he gave up everything, Gregory said softly. There was no edge in his voice. That made it worse. That's not endurance, Mrs. Caldwell. That's extortion. Michael stepped forward slightly. Olivia, is that true? His voice had changed, less certain, less loyal. You always said James walked out, that he abandoned you, and Ariana. He did abandon us, she snapped. I have the recording, Gregory said, reaching into his briefcase again. Would you like to hear it? No! Her voice broke into a scream. She was shaking now, completely. No, I don't. Get out. Get out of my house, both of you, now! At the edge of the room, Vanessa had stopped moving. Her phone hung loosely in her hand. Her face had gone pale. She stared at her mother like she was seeing her for the first time. "Mom," she whispered, "what did you do?" My mother didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth settled into the room like something heavy and final. There was no space left for excuses, no room for another version of the story, just silence. We drove for almost 10 minutes before I could speak. "Thank you." The words felt small, inadequate. "Gregory, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't—" "Your father did," he said quietly, eyes still on the road. "I just carried out what he put in place." My phone buzzed in my hand, a message from Michael. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I should have asked questions instead of believing everything I was told. Can we talk sometime?" Then another. From Susan. "I was wrong about you. About a lot of things." I showed Gregory. He nodded once slowly. The truth has a way of rearranging loyalties. That evening, we sat back in his office, going over what came next. Change the locks on my father's house. Install additional security cameras. Document every call, every message, every attempt at contact. "They won't walk away quietly," Gregory said. "People like that rarely do, Victor especially. He has a temper, and he just lost in front of everyone." "What can they actually do?" I asked. "You said the will is solid." "It is," he said, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes briefly. "Legally, they don't have a case." A pause. "But not everything dangerous is legal." I felt that settle somewhere deep. "Your father understood that," he continued. "That's why he installed a security system at the house." He glanced at me. "It's still active. Motion sensors, cloud backup. I have access to the feed." I thought about Victor's face in that living room, the way his anger had barely stayed contained. "You really think they'd try something?" "I think," Gregory said carefully, "you should be cautious, at least until things settle." But nothing was settling. That night, another message came through, from Vanessa. "I don't expect you to forgive me, or Mom, but I need you to know I'm not part of this anymore. And Ariana, please be careful. Victor, he said things tonight. I'm scared for you." I read it twice, then set my phone down. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. 2 weeks passed after that meeting. No calls, no messages, no posts. It should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like waiting. Like the moment right before something breaks. I started spending more time at my father's house, my house now, sorting through his things, getting ready to move in. Every drawer I opened felt like a conversation I never got to finish with him. Old photographs, receipts from hardware stores, a chipped mug that read, "World's Best Dad." Late one night, around 11, my phone buzzed. Security alert, motion detected, front yard. My chest tightened as I opened the app. The camera feed came into focus. A dark pickup truck sat parked at the curb, headlights off, engine running. I couldn't see the driver through the tinted windows, but I didn't need to. I knew that truck. Victor's Ford F-150. It stayed there. 5 minutes. 10. 15. I watched the screen without breathing, every second recorded. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the truck pulled away and disappeared into the night. I called Gregory immediately. "Could be nothing," he said, though I could hear the tension in his voice. "He could just be checking the property." "At 11 at night?" A pause. "Call the police," he said. "Make a report, start a record." So I did. The officer who came was polite, calm, but not concerned. "No crime has been committed, ma'am. We'll log the report. If anything else happens, give us a call." Anything else? Like what? I wanted to ask. Like someone breaking in? Like something worse? The next morning, another message from Vanessa. "He's been drinking every night since the meeting. Mom can't calm him down. He keeps saying you humiliated him, that you'll pay." I stared at the message for a long time, then saved it. Evidence. At 3:07 a.m., my phone went off again. The alert dragged me out of sleep before I was even fully awake. Motion detected. Front porch. I grabbed my phone, my pulse already racing as the feed loaded. 2 figures, dressed in dark clothing, moving quickly. One of them was holding something, a red container. Gasoline. No, no, no. I watched, frozen, as the first figure poured liquid along the porch railing, across the steps, around the base of the bushes my father had trimmed so carefully. The second one stood nearby, scanning the street, watching. Then the first figure pulled out a lighter. I was already dialing 911. Someone's trying to set my house on fire. I have them on camera. Please, 742 Maple Street, please send someone now. The flame hit, and the porch exploded into light. Orange and yellow fire climbing the wood my father had built with his own hands. But then, something changed. Water burst from hidden nozzles. The sprinkler system. Like he had planned for this, even now. It activated instantly, drenching the flames, cutting through the fire before it could spread. I stared at the screen as the fire sputtered and hissed, fighting against the spray. The 2 figures froze, just for a second. Then they ran, straight toward a truck parked half a block away. The camera caught everything, including the license plate, clear, undeniable. I stayed on the phone until I heard sirens in the distance. Fire trucks arrived within minutes. By the time they got there, the sprinklers had done most of the work. The porch was damaged, blackened, the railing destroyed, but the house was still standing. My father's house. My house. The police arrived right after. I showed them the footage. The officer leaned closer to the screen. His expression changed. "We know that truck," he said. "We'll have them within the hour." The police station at 4 in the morning feels empty in a way that's hard to explain. Too bright. Too quiet. I sat in a plastic chair, Gregory beside me, watching officers move through the halls like shadows. At around 4:30, a detective approached us. Aaron Brooks. Tired eyes, steady presence. "Ms. Caldwell." He took a seat across from us. "We've made 2 arrests." A pause. "Victor Hayes and Olivia Caldwell." Hearing Victor's name didn't surprise me. Hearing my mother's did. It settled somewhere deep in my chest, heavy, cold, and unmoving. "We found them at their residence," Detective Brooks continued. "Mr. Hayes' clothes still carried the smell of gasoline. Mrs. Caldwell was attempting to delete messages from her phone." He opened a folder in front of him. "Our tech team recovered everything. Messages between the 2 of them. Planning the fire. Discussing timing." He paused, then looked directly at me. "She knew, Ms. Caldwell. She wasn't just involved. She helped plan it." Gregory's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Would you like to see them?" Brooks asked. "You're not required to." I didn't. Every logical part of me wanted to walk out of that station, go home, and let the system handle it, to never see their faces again. But there was another part of me, the 7-year-old girl who had stood on that porch watching her father cry, the teenager who had learned how to disappear inside her own home, the woman who had been called selfish for refusing to give away her dignity. "Yes," I said quietly. "I want to see them." They placed me behind one-way glass. My mother sat inside the interrogation room. Her makeup was smeared. Her blouse, once perfectly pressed, was wrinkled and stained. She didn't look like the woman who raised me. She looked like someone I didn't recognize. When she spoke, her voice broke. "She's my daughter. I would never hurt my daughter, but she had. She had tried to burn down everything my father left behind. The trial lasted 4 months. It felt like 4 years. The evidence was overwhelming. Video footage, text messages, receipts for gasoline tied directly to Victor's credit card. 2 neighbors who had seen the truck that night. There was no space left for doubt. Victor testified first. His lawyer tried to frame him as a man under pressure. A man pushed to desperation by failing business ventures and mounting debt. The inheritance, he argued, would have saved everything. The jury didn't care. They weren't looking at his excuses. They were looking at the gasoline, the match, the fire, guilty, first-degree arson, conspiracy to commit arson. 10 years, 7 for the act, 3 for the conspiracy, eligible for parole in 6. My mother's defense took a different angle. She was a victim, her attorney claimed, manipulated, pressured, afraid. She never wanted anyone hurt. But the messages told the truth. If we can't have the money, she doesn't get to keep the house. Burn it down. Her words, typed by her own hand, guilty, conspiracy to commit arson, 5 years, possible parole after 3. When the judge finished reading the sentence, my mother turned toward me. Her eyes were red, her face hollow. Her lips moved. It took me a second to understand what she was saying. "You'll regret this." The same words Victor had thrown at me in the cafe. The same words he had repeated in that living room. I didn't look away. Not until the bailiff led her out of the courtroom. Outside, Gregory walked me to my car. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it for a moment. "I don't feel like I won," I said. "I just feel empty." "That's normal," he said gently, squeezing my arm. "But Ariana, your father would be proud." The emptiness didn't disappear, but it shifted. Just enough to let something else in. Let me step out of the story for a moment and ask you something honestly. Do you think I should forgive her? Some people say family is family, no matter what. Others believe there are lines that, once crossed, can't ever be undone. I'd really like to know what you think. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line with someone you love, or someone you were supposed to love, you're not alone. What my father left for me after everything wasn't what I expected. The story made the local news. Daughter's inheritance leads to arson plot. My face was blurred on the broadcast, but anyone who knew me recognized the house immediately. Work became complicated. Some colleagues offered awkward sympathy. Others watched me with that quiet curiosity people get when they sense something dramatic just beneath the surface. I kept my head down, did my job, reminded myself over and over that I had nothing to be ashamed of. The fallout within the family was different. Susan sent me a handwritten letter, 5 full pages. She wrote about everything she remembered from the divorce, things my mother had told her, things she now realized weren't true. At the end, she apologized for believing the wrong person for 20 years. Michael cut ties with my mother completely. He came by once, stood awkwardly in the living room that used to belong to my father, now mine. "I remember your graduation," he said quietly. "I saw your dad crying. I didn't understand it back then." A pause. "Now I do." He didn't ask for anything. That mattered more than any apology ever could. Vanessa was harder to place. She called me about a week after the sentencing. Her voice was different, smaller, uncertain. Nothing like the confident girl who used to have everything handed to her while I stood on the sidelines. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Vanessa said. "I know I was part of it. I saw how they treated you. I saw how they made you feel like you didn't matter, and I said nothing. I didn't stand up for you." She took a breath that sounded like it hurt. "But I need you to know, I'm not her. I'm not going to become her." There was a pause. "I've started therapy," she added quietly. "I'm trying to figure out how much of who I am is actually me, and how much is just what they made me into." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. "Do you think—" She hesitated. "Maybe we could start over? Not as sisters, just 2 people who share a past." I let that sit for a moment. "We can try." 6 months after the trial, Gregory called and asked me to meet him at my father's house. "There's something your dad wanted you to see," he said. We stood in what used to be my father's workshop, later turned into a quiet study after he sold the business. "James asked me to wait," Gregory explained. "He wanted to make sure everything had settled before you found this. He walked over to a built-in bookshelf and pressed something along the side. A soft click. A hidden panel slid open. Inside was a wooden box, hand-carved, smooth, warm to the touch, the kind of craftsmanship my father had been known for. "He made this for you," Gregory said softly. "Took him 3 months. He told me it was the most important thing he ever built." My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Photographs. Dozens of them. Me at 7, smiling with a gap where my front tooth used to be. Me at 12, holding a math trophy like it was the most important thing in the world. Me at 18, wearing my graduation cap. Me at 25, shaking hands outside my first engineering job. Each photo had something written on the back. His handwriting. Ariana, age 7. The day I had to leave. I promised myself I would find a way back to you. Ariana, age 12. I was sitting in the back of the auditorium. You didn't see me, but I saw you. Ariana, age 25. I drove 2 hours just to watch you walk into that building. My daughter, the engineer. I've never been prouder. The last photo stopped me. It was recent. Me standing outside my apartment, unaware, taken from across the street. On the back, he had written, "My beautiful girl, every choice you've made, you made on your own. I couldn't be more proud of you. The money? It's just paper. These moments, this is what I'm really leaving behind. Proof that I was always there, that I always loved you, even when you couldn't see me." I held the box against my chest, and I cried. Not the kind of crying you hold back, the kind that finally lets something go. A year has passed since the trial. I live in my father's house now. Our house. I left his workshop exactly the way he had it. The scent of wood and polish still lingers in the air. His tools hang in perfect lines along the wall. The workbench still stands where he built things that people valued. Some nights, I sit out there with a cup of tea and talk to him. I don't know if he can hear me. Maybe he can. Maybe that doesn't matter. The money is still there, invested, untouched for the most part. I still go to work every day, still drive the same practical car. My father lived simply because he believed wealth was meant to protect you, not define you. I understand that now. My mother is still in prison. She sends letters sometimes. I don't read them. That isn't cruelty. It's protection. Gregory helped me understand the difference. Victor has at least 4 more years to serve. There's a permanent restraining order in place for when he gets out. The system moves slowly, but it moves. Vanessa visits occasionally. We're not close. I don't know if we ever will be. But we're not strangers anymore. She's building something for herself, away from everything she grew up in. I respect that. The family gatherings I used to dread, I don't go anymore. Not out of anger, but because I've learned something important. Obligation is not the same as love. And blood is not the same as loyalty. I have dinner with Michael once a month. Susan sends me Christmas cards. These small connections, chosen, not forced, mean more than anything I grew up with. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes too much energy, and I have better things to do with mine. But I'm not naive either. I know what people are capable of when money is involved. I know what my own mother was willing to do. I won't forget that, but I also won't let it define me. Sometimes I stand on the front porch, rebuilt now with the same design my father created, and look out at the street where everything almost ended. I think about that night. The fire. The sprinklers turning on like he was still reaching across time to protect me. The cameras capturing every second. The quiet preparation of a man who understood exactly who he had been married to and exactly what she might do. He didn't just leave me money, he left me protection. And more than that, he gave me permission. Permission to say no, permission to draw boundaries, permission to walk away from people whose love comes with conditions, with expectations, with a price attached. I used to believe family meant forever. No matter what. I used to believe blood meant you had to forgive everything, accept everything, Endure everything. My father taught me something different. Not with speeches, with actions, with 20 years of quiet sacrifice, careful planning, and a kind of love that never once asked for anything in return. And what I've come to understand is this: loyalty should never require you to abandon yourself. If staying means shrinking, silencing your voice, or accepting harm just to keep the peace, then that isn't love. That's control dressed up as family. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to say no, without explaining, without apologizing, without carrying guilt that was never yours to begin with. Because real love doesn't demand proof. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't punish you for having boundaries. It respects them. There will be people who call you cold when you stop tolerating what hurts you. Let them. Growth often looks like betrayal to those who benefited from your silence. But choosing your dignity is not betrayal. It's clarity. It's strength. And it's the moment you stop surviving and start living on your own terms. And if something in this story stayed with you, don't just scroll away. Take a moment to like this video so more people who need to hear this message can find it too. Share it with someone who might be struggling in silence, someone who needs to be reminded that their voice matters. And I'd really love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed your life? Leave a comment and tell me your story. You're not alone here. If you want more stories like this about family, about justice, about finding stories to tell, are the ones that help us heal the most. I'll see you in the